Hello, guys, and welcome back to Figuring It Out with Grace and Kaylee. We are so excited today to introduce you to Alexis. Alexis is a yoga teacher with 500 hours, if not more, maybe, of training. And today we're going to dive into a little bit more about yoga as a form of therapy and yoga for trauma. So we're so excited to have you here today, Alexis. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. At first, I just kind of wanted to give our audience just a little bit of background about yourself and where your passion for yoga really began, if you've always been interested, or if this is like a newfound calling.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thank you for having me. I absolutely could talk about yoga all day, every day. I can get annoying with it. So this is a beautiful platform for sharing what I
Awesome.
love. I started about 11 years ago when I was in my early 20s. And at first, of course, it was a physical practice. It was like, oh my gosh, inversions, handstands, that's so cool. It's so empowering. Started going to classes at like a YMCA. Was like one of the most cool yoga teachers. She was almost like a PE teacher, very much like, don't wear short shorts to my class. And I was like, okay. And then I progressed to like moving to Austin, and they have an incredible yoga scene. And there was just classes all day long. And I would take a class at least once a day, maybe sometimes twice a day. It was like a place to go where I just felt like life wasn't so chaotic. It was like that safe haven of everything else could go wrong in the day, and I could go to my mat and I will feel better at the end of a practice. So finding that was beautiful. Fast forward many years of community and socializing and living up in Austin, how I all do, and COVID hit. And right before then, I was like, I need to do teacher training. Like, I'm really admiring what's happening for myself. I admire those that are teaching classes. They were so wise. They had so much more to give than just the physical poses. And I was like, what could be here? I was practicing at a studio that was much more physical based, like hot yoga. And I was like, I want the spiritual. So I did my research, asked around, and I found Practice Yoga, which is a beautiful donation based in Austin, Texas. And I met with them and I was like, hey, I want to do this training, but I work a big job and blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, yeah, it's great. It's one day a week on the weekends, once a month. You can do this. And I was like, sign me up. COVID hit. Shit
Boom.
hit the fan. Yes. Everything came crashing down as it did for everybody. And it was just the most jarring experience not having community anymore, not having those things to go to, not having those people to connect with. I lost my job. My marriage was falling apart. I was like, what the heck is going on here? I had my best friend, Jeanette, was
Mhm.
like, you need to go home to your family. Like, you're falling apart. I'm not going to watch you crumble. I need you to just like go back home. So I left Austin and moved back to Arizona 2020, like right when this shit hit the fan. And I was like reaching out to the studio, hey, can I still do this teacher training? Like, I really want to do this still. And they're like, actually, we're doing it all on Zoom now. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah. So everything's converted to Zoom because we can't meet in person. We can't attend the class together. Like, this is all on Zoom. So just bear with us. We're trying to work out the details. It ended up being like a godsend. It was like a tree of knowledge to lean on in this like storm that was COVID-19. So the first year it was online, couple 4 hours a week, meeting on the screen with people that wanted the same thing. They wanted yoga, they wanted love, they wanted community. They required us to take 2 hours of class a day, or oh, sorry, not a day, a week. And that was on Zoom too. So it was like, then I'm in my parents' office because I moved back home with my parents, and it was doing yoga. And I was like, this is different than doing it in my community, but it was nice because it was more about me and not about what the dude next to me looks like or what the chick over there is doing. It was so much more internalized, and that was beautiful. Fast forward through the course of the 200-hour program, it was crazy not doing hands-on touch. It was crazy not doing like in-person things, but it made me a better teacher because you had to verbalize what you wanted somebody to do. You couldn't just be like, all right, everybody look over here, I'm gonna do this, and then you do it. It was like, no, I need you to move your right foot this way, hug your navel in, pull your shoulder blades down, lift through the crown of your head, like all these subtle cues that now that I teach public classes, like it hits. Like it was like while we were in that program, we had a doctor named Dr. Mark Uradell, who's amazing. He's a physical therapist, a massage therapist, and a yoga therapist, meet with us. And he was like, hey, we have this program called yoga therapy. What it is, it's a blend of Western med and Eastern philosophy coming together to work with a person to get them what they need. You can work in a hospital, you can work in a rehab, you could work in oncology, you can work anywhere. And I was just like, boom. My mom's a nurse. All my life, she's like, just be a nurse, Alexis. It's the best thing you could do. Nurses. And I was like, I don't like Western med that much. Like, I don't like the structure of a hospital. Like, absolutely, I admire and I love anybody that works in the healthcare industry, especially in hospitals, especially during COVID when they got the
Yeah.
shit end of the stick.
Mhm.
And it was just beautiful to see that something I love and that helped me exist in this thing I always wanted to be, but for some reason was held back from doing. So I was like, sign me up, buddy. Like, let's go.
Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful how you touched on, your life was going through so many transitions and leaning into yoga and your community was really important for your healing journey. And I know for myself, I bonded with you, Alexis, about yoga because I also use it as a practice to ground and find peace within my own mind and chaos. In 2019, I lost a very dear friend of mine to cancer, and I went through a really gnarly breakup. And my sister encouraged me to do a 40-day yoga challenge with the studio. So just getting back into the practice of being on my mat every day really saved me from going to a very dark place, or like climbing out of a dark place. And I think it's so relatable, and I appreciate you touching on, the physical practice of it, which is something everyone kind of gets into, and then creating that like spiritual add-on. And I think that's like something that people don't necessarily know they could tap into themselves until they experience it. Yeah, I that's awesome. We love that. And I'm curious now, do you practice yoga every single day? You are a yoga teacher, right?
Yeah. So, and also I can ramble. So if you need to just like cut me off, go ahead.
You're good.
I will get on a
Never.
tizzy and go from like 9 different subjects.
No, we love
You're
it.
good.
We love it. Wait, okay. So I'm sorry, totally answer Grace's question, but let
You're
me
good.
interrupt. The practice, can you describe that to me one more time? So it's the practice of, you said like Western medicine, and can you go over that
Eastern
one more
medicine,
time?
right?
Yeah, and
Right.
and like it's can sound like generic terms, but what yoga therapy is that you're working on an individual basis with a person to help find balance between mind, body, and spirit. And you're a personal trainer, right? You
Yes.
work with physical body, you work with people. People are more than just their muscles, they're more than just their injuries. They are a deep intrinsic being. And sometimes what they're experiencing comes from a deeper layer, right? So what yoga therapy does is it seeks to peel back those layers of your existence and what you feel about the world, how you feel about yourself, and give you practices to integrate and balance that out. So it's just not just yoga, it's breathing, right? Pranayama, it's mental stuff, meditation, right? It's going to be in a layer of lifestyle. Like you don't tell somebody what to eat, but you encourage them to identify what they're bringing into themselves, whether that be food, what they're watching, how much screen time, who they're hanging out with, and how that's affecting them on the deeper layers. So it takes yoga and it applies it as a therapy in that you're working with the person one on one and you're getting them to a place where they can do the work themselves. You're not getting their abs for them. You tell them how to work out. Same thing with yoga therapy. I'm not going to tell you how to feel or what to think or what to do. I'm going to say, based on what I'm seeing here, this is what I would recommend. These are the things that I think you should do. So does that make sense? Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it's actually like touches my soul. That is so beautiful. Who is a typical client?
Okay, that's a good question. So it could be coming from a variety of different things. And forewarning, I'm not a practicing yoga therapist. I'm a yoga teacher trained to be a yoga therapist. So until I get my accreditation, I cannot call myself a yoga therapist, but I will be, and I'm putting it out in the universe because it is
Hell
going to
yeah, we're
happen.
manifesting that for you, babe.
Oh, it's happening. It is
Yeah.
Yes.
happening.
So it comes from referrals. Oftentimes, if someone like has insurance and they're working with a physical therapist, let's say for a shoulder injury, and their insurance money runs out for physical therapy, you can then transfer to a yoga therapist to do similar modalities. So you read the medical records, you do an intake form, you do an interview, you do a postural assessment and a breathing assessment, and you work from there and with the information that the physical therapist. So it takes a team of people. So you can also get referrals from a psychologist or for me, like a social worker, where they're saying, hey, we're working with you on trauma, but I think you should meet with Alexis for this yoga therapy. I think they'll also really help. So it's coming from a variety of ways, or just people that come to the yoga studio. Hey, I really like this, but I've been dealing with X, Y, and Z, kind of creating a private practice for them. So it can come just from so many ways. People work in hospital settings. I'm not quite sure the details on what the people do, but I know it's a similar concept in that you're bringing it up to the same level of what your healthcare provider would be.
That is so badass. I just keep thinking about the people that I know they're lifestyle coaches, and this feels like lifestyle coaching, but as you mentioned, based in so much like ancient practice and common like knowledge amongst all healthcare. And I love that it's a mixture of Eastern and Western medicine, because I think that it's important to bring the perspective of both for like whole health and whole full healing, which we love here at Figuring It
Preventative
Out.
health,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's getting with all the life coaches, the health coaches, like they're having them in hospitals now, they're having them at your doctor's office. It's really such a beautiful transition. And I feel like, unless maybe just personally it grew to me after COVID, but I feel like a lot of this got more, I don't even want to say mainstream. Maybe people are more aware of it now since after COVID, preventative health. What am I putting in my body? What are these chemicals that are being added to our food? So I am so for this. I'm like, can
I
I do
know,
yoga
same. Can we
therapy?
sign
Can
up?
I?
Yes, yes. It's for everybody.
But
Yes.
I do think, like, to your point, Kaylee, COVID did give us time, and it definitely created a sense of fear, in the sense like, is your immune system compromised? Are you healthy to withstand, a potentially life-threatening disease? And so it gave people the time and the fear to be like, oh shit, should I actually be doing something about this? So I totally agree. Like, it blossomed. I'm curious, for a class when it comes to yoga as therapy, would that be, what are the differences? How would that look and compared to a class you would just teach at your studio that you work for?
Yeah, and that's a good question too, because it's like, what are these subtle nuances? Like, how is that different than my vinyasa practice or my hot yoga class that I love going to, right? And as a public yoga teacher, and I teach at a studio, you get 20 people that show up and they're all different bodies, right? They're all different life experiences. And for lack of a better word, you're kind of at the mercy of what the teacher wants to teach you that day. And it might not be the best thing if you have a shoulder injury. It might not be the best thing if you're already emotionally provoked in a certain way, right? So it's a kind of like not a one size fits all, but I would say it focuses more on the movement practice, whereas the yoga therapy focuses on the entire body, bringing it into balance. So these different layers of awareness, right? As my training and teaching goes, I try to integrate yoga therapy into public classes without having to be super on the nose about it. And like, I'll be like, full disclaimer, guys, this might feel tedious or weird because this is a yoga therapy technique, but also sometimes I just don't say shit because you're gonna feel different. Like you talked about, Grace, you feel different after you practice. You feel different. There's something deeper going on there. And it doesn't have to be verbalized, it doesn't have to be stated, or you don't have to tell the student, hey, this is for your spiritual body. You can bring them through the practice, bring them through the breath. They will feel the difference. And it doesn't have to be described in
Mhm.
that specific way. And that's what I love about yoga is that it's so passive, but it's so direct at the same time. It has these beautiful contradictions where it just goes right in. And even more so, like, doesn't take away from anybody's belief systems. It doesn't take away from your religion, who you are as a person, how you view the world. It should only enhance the positive qualities of all of those things that are so near and dear to people.
Oh my gosh, beautiful answer and so true. Random pet peeve I fucking hate at the end of a yoga class when my teacher does not allow me to sit and rest in my final pose and like meditate. If I get 60 seconds, I throw a fit. I'm like,
You're like,
I
okay, get out,
I
next
need
class.
time. Everyone's talking. Anyway, random side
So
of
what are like the differences, the different poses or sequences or
Mhm.
like how maybe the instructor behaves
Yeah,
that is different
that is
than,
different.
yeah, than
So could be many veins, right? Like for one, if you're working one-on-one with a client, we call it for yoga therapy, you're only teaching them about 8 poses because ideally you want them to go home with this information and do it on their own. And if
Mhm.
you're giving them 20 poses like you would teach in a public class, they're going to be like, huh? You
So
know,
that's
like,
very similar to physical therapy, where like you would go
yes.
and get a couple exercises to
go
bring
do
home and
this
practice.
at
Okay.
home.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. Very physical therapy-esque in that nature. But
Yeah.
then you'd also teach them a breathing practice, whether that's full yogic breath, Nadi Shodhana, like different ways to breathe that work best for what they're trying to accomplish because you set goals together and you look to reach those goals. And then a meditation practice, like you're saying, Grace. Shavasana is the
Shavasana.
reason why we practice is to
Yes.
get to Shavasana. So if they're taking that away from you, they
Like,
needed to take out like 3 or 4 poses earlier in the practice. So,
yes, agreed.
uh,
We had talked, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
go ahead.
We had talked about prior to, I know in some of your training, I think if you had a client that came that's experienced significant trauma, um, is there a specialized one? Is this form of therapy, yoga as therapy, meant for trauma-based patients? Can it be used for them or is that separate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a huge application of trauma-informed yoga is what it's called. Um, I want to speak about it in the right way because there's so much extensive training that goes into how to hold space for these people, how to hold space for someone that is moving through, sometimes just discovering how to work with their trauma. So, in a yoga setting, you want to make sure that they feel safe every step of the way. So, the way you set up the room is very important. The lights stay on, you could see the exits, you tell them what's behind this door and that door. You make sure that you're not using loud music, that there's nobody coming and going that has nothing to do with the space, that you're not using heavy scents, anything that could create a response for somebody. Same thing with physical touch. You never touch somebody unless you get permission first, but even then. And then it's about autonomy. It's about giving them the choice of what they want to do with their body. It's not a dogmatic approach. It's not like, this is how you do Warrior Two and this is what we're doing today. So do it. It's if this feels good for you, think about pulling back your right hip a little bit. If it's okay in your body, maybe you expand the arms out wide. Invitational languaging is a very important part of it. Not using poses that can feel vulnerable, something like happy baby pose, right? We come into it at the end of our practice and it's like, I love this. For some people, that is a huge no. And then further, to get to the science aspect of it, sometimes when someone experiences trauma, oftentimes the corpus callosum gets smaller. So this is the part of the brain that balances the hemispheres of the brain. So it comes into this part where you kind of go into shutdown mode. You don't know how to verbalize. You don't know how to respond to things. Using balancing postures actually helps to grow that part of the brain so that you're balancing both hemispheres of the brain again. So it does work on a neuro level where you're using poses and breath work to counter a lot of this response. Finally, meditation, so body scanning, body awareness, yoga nidra is another great way to get people back into their bodies. The ultimate goal is to get them back into their body because often with trauma, it's a chronic disassociation,
Mm-hmm.
either acute or chronic trauma. There's something there where you're like, I don't want to be in my body right now. I don't want to be experiencing this. I'm going to go. Another big part of what I practice and what I teach is the nervous system. So we have our parasympathetic and our sympathetic. Sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. So a lot of people are in chronic fight or flight, whether that be from trauma, whether that be from your environment, whether that be from what you're consuming, taking in, your natural constitution over time. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. This is a way for your body to finally not have to do all that. It brings you back into comfort. It lets you rest for once. And some people, whether they've experienced trauma or not, are in this go, 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 go mindset that if you can get them to parasympathetic, it actually allows their nervous system to finally calm down so that they can finally take a breath. So it goes all the way.
I've heard recently too, a scientist, a doctor was speaking on the fact that when someone finally escapes fight or flight, they ended up becoming incredibly exhausted. They'll be like ridiculously sleepy and not able to function because their body is finally like cooling off from that particular state, which I found made sense and also was like wild. So thinking of like particular times in my life where maybe I had needed to really slow down and like to your point, not escape. So cool. I love that you're able to continue to educate people to understand how versatile just yoga in general and the whole practice of it, breath work, meditation, and movement can be for the body. Because I know, Kaylee, from like your lens and perspective, those are all things that you use and, you know, you encourage your clients to use in your fitness training, you know, without being a yoga teacher or professional.
Yeah. Like spirituality and mental health to me are like hand in hand, whether, and I like how you touched on earlier, it has nothing to do with religion or what you believe in. It's just, you know, trusting in, I don't know if you want to say like a higher power, trusting in the universe, trusting in yourself that you're going to get into that. Like, you need to be into the rest and digest to like, your body has got to rest to even see benefits in working out hardcore or your diet or anything. Like, that is where we want to be. So yoga is like an amazing way to get you there.
I want to know what are some, was there anything that you learned throughout your yoga teacher training or learning more about yoga as a form of therapy that totally shocked you or something that you would have never thought, you know, without learning it in that environment?
Yeah, the power of the breath for sure, breathing and how unaware most of us are breathing. Extending your exhale. So just adding a couple extra seconds onto your exhalation is how you activate parasympathetic. So when I found out that your breath overrides your nervous system, it's this little key to get you there. I was like, how do we not learn about this in grade school? How is this not something that we're taught about from like when we're young, that your breath is your power? Pranayama means prana is life force and yama is like a discipline of. So you can control your life force if you can control your breath. You can also control your mind if you can control your breath. So I'm someone that has always had anxiety. I don't label it as that. I didn't even know what it was when I was younger. Why do I feel like keyed up and stressed out? My heart is beating in my neck. Like, what is this about? And it's something that I use to work with my anxiety. It's something that I want to use for other people to work with their anxiety because there's very successful people that have anxiety. There are very like vibrant people that have anxiety. Like it doesn't look like a certain type of person. It's kind of insidious. It's in a
Mhm.
lot and people function through it and they think it's normal to feel like that all the time. It's not.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
wearing out. It wears you out. And that's what burnout comes from. That's when people, they just all of a sudden crash and they're just like, I'm fucking done. Like I'm depleted. I have nothing left to give. That's when disease come in, like you spoke about earlier.
Mhm.
Disease is dis-ease. There is no ease in the body.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
is no way to rest. So when you
Ooh,
can
we're
get
putting that on a quote on a t-shirt, bitches. So true.
And then transforming from the other thing I found out was when I early on in my program, because I'm a 500 hour, but I will be 1,000 hour by the time this is done. When the one of the instructors was like, yoga is not a workout. I was like, what? Yoga's not a workout. That's what I've been doing for like the last 10 years.
There are many people who would feel highly confused by that comment for sure.
Right.
Yeah, when I do yoga, I love like I'm like I don't want to go to like the ab one. Like I just want to go to the one where they like light candles
You
and
want some
like do
yen
like the
yoga?
like that
Yes.
is my vibe. I'm like
Yes.
I don't want to work out right now. I just want to like oh yeah.
Good. Because that's what it should be like. I mean, there's places for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is no right or wrong way to practice as long as you're not hurting yourself. There is space for all of it, but I'm on that same page as you, Kaylee. Like it took me years to slow the heck down. Like I would go to my classes and I'd be like, I want to sweat, I want to burn, I want to get strong. I'm not a fan of like the gym. It gives me really bad anxiety, you know. I would have to like when I was going to the gym regularly, I was like taking pre-workout and then smoking weed and then like getting so out of my head and like super
Yeah.
unhealthy 20-something year old just like jacked out of her mind with craziness. Like now if I work out, it's with a personal trainer or it's in a good headspace. But coming back
Yeah.
to the yoga aspect, the yin yoga, restorative yoga, these slow practices are something that I love now. I love teaching them. I love giving people that gift. I love doing it alongside sound healing, which is crystal singing bowls or Tibetan bowls. Like I have a lot of really great people in my life that are all about sound healing, and they're beautiful modalities to mix together. Because you're right, like at the end of a long week, when you've already been kicking your butt at the gym, you've already been working out your with your kids and your job and everything, the last thing you need is more heat and more activity.
Hmm.
That ability to give yourself permission to just rest and breathe is the biggest gift you could truly give yourself at the end of the day. Like it's so powerful. I've worked with kids at the juvenile detention center that were on probation for drug related offenses, and we would do yin yoga with sound baths. So I would teach the yin yoga, my girl Katie would do the bowls. And even these like 13, 14-year-old kids with a chip on their shoulder and an attitude, by the end of the hour, the look on their faces was just so blissed out, so calm. And I don't, they've been through everything, you know, some of them wearing ankle monitors. And I would ask them, how do you feel? And they'd be like, I feel really good. I feel
That's
really calm right now. And
that's
so
so
seeing it,
beautiful.
seeing it in a kid that's like going through life and then seeing it in a grown ass adult that's like already living their life and they get the same exact response. I was like, this is the ticket right here. This is
Yeah.
medicine.
Can you tell
Yeah.
us more about sound baths and using sound bowls and that kind of healing?
Absolutely. I am a huge advocate for sound healing because it is a nonverbal way to bring your body again back to balance. It harmonizes. It uses vibrations. We are all vibrating. We are vibratory beings. Our cells vibrate. Everything is resonance. Everything is sound. And with the sound bowls, it creates a sound that completely relaxes you from the inside out, from the cellular level. You don't have to talk, you don't have to move, you just have to sit there, breathe, and let it come over you. They're all aligned to the 7 different chakras of the body as well. So there's typically 7 bowls played at the same or different frequencies that all emit through the chakras. If that's not your jam, then you also get just this pure sensation of sound where the brain can't really think because it's like, holy moly, what is this? What? And then bringing in things like gongs is amazing, bringing in drums, bringing in chimes. It's like this washing over of sound so that your body rests, your mind relaxes, and you feel just like different afterwards. It's like one of the most powerful tools I've seen, especially because it's nonverbal and non-physical. I love that aspect of it.
If
There,
you don't have access to someone able to do that, do you get the same effects if you were to like look it up maybe on YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you could still like put your headphones in or listen to it at the end of the night, and you are getting an effect out of that. A sound from a speaker is similar to a sound in real life in person. Obviously, like an atmosphere experience is lovely, but you can still get just as much of what you need because you're still hearing it the same way. Your ears aren't different when you're in public class or when you're in your bedroom at the end of the night. So yeah, absolutely advocate for looking stuff up on YouTube, downloading some tracks, apps, whatever they are.
you mentioned the chakras earlier. For someone that's not familiar with what your chakras are, could you speak to that a little bit for us?
How much time do you have?
Ah!
So the long short of it, and somebody could contest this, but they're energy centers in the body. There's 7 of them that are like the most common referenced ones, from the root all the way up to the crown. So they're in the various energy centers of the body. So what I also like is that they play into how you're feeling, what's going on with you. So let's say the solar plexus that aids in your digestion is also located above your stomach. Your heart, yes, it's in the heart, it's around the heart center, but also is your ability to give and receive love. The throat is one of my favorite ones to talk about because it doesn't only govern the ability to speak, it also governs the ability to listen and hear and your sense of smell. So it's all of these senses up here. I'm a sacral. Sacral is your creativity. So think creation, reproduction, sexuality. Root is going to be that grounding, stability, finances can come here. So what makes you feel safe? Sorry, I'm going out of order.
You're fine.
And then third eye is going to be that place of intuition, like your knowingness, your trust in yourself, that little voice that tells you, okay, this is a good idea. And then your crown, which actually floats above, is your connection to divine, connection to the highest power. So when they're all nice and balanced, you could have a vibrant life. When things kind of go out of whack, like you've got a lot of GI issues, got a lot of stomach upset, it could be an issue with your solar plexus. I can only speak for myself. Trauma in the sacral chakra, things that happen, you can store it there and it can limit your ability to create or feel like a creative person. Same thing with heart chakra, we all got to do the work on our hearts. We can protect it, we can close it down over time because of things that have happened or things that we've experienced. And so finding ways to open that back up through sound is a beautiful way to do that. Breathing is another great way. Yoga is another great way. And that's the other great part about yoga therapy is that there's so many of these ancient philosophies that have to do with your physical body and how you feel. It's more than just the chakras, it is the gunas, the doshas. There's like so many different ways to identify imbalance or dysfunction. And there's also so many beautiful ways to bring it back into balance or how to like clear it out. It's amazing.
So amazing. I had a massage one time. I was at a farmer's market and there was a woman with a massage chair and she was like, "Hey, I'm giving out energy massages." I think that's what she called it. And I was like, "I'll sign up free, like whatever." So it was a 5-minute reading and she came back at the end of it. And I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember what she said was blocked off, but she was like, "You're either there's a lot of tension or you're storing a lot of energy." She basically told me, she's like, "You're keeping a secret. You're not being transparent. You're not being honest." And I actually was keeping a secret from my partner at the time. And I just felt so seen and read. I was like, this was not the kind of massage I signed up for, but like, can I get your card? Because I've got to come back.
Oh my God.
But it's cool, like you said, ancient wisdom and how to understand the body and how people have used that in order to help other people heal, such as yoga therapy and different forms and methods. I also fucking love a sound bath. I feel like I've walked through a waterfall at the end of it, like just cleansed, refreshed. In addition to obviously those kind of tools, I'd love to know, like, what does a day in the life of Alexis look like? Do you implement all of these kind of tips and tools that you have in your daily life to stay grounded, or what does that look like for you?
Oh yeah. And your question if do I practice every day and all those things. Yes, I do try to do all of these tools. And part of going through yoga therapy training has been getting yoga therapy on myself. When you're learning something, you got to do it yourself. You have to feel it in your own body. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's shadow work and it's things you don't want to look at in yourself. But that's where the real growth comes from. So I wake up, I try to do a yoga practice here in my living room, and it's not like an exaggerated thing. It's maybe 15 minutes of movement for what works best for me that day. Then I go on a walk and I eat at a certain time. I clean and cleanse myself. I go about my day, and a lot of the routine is just like making sure that I'm taking in nutritious foods. I am trying to regulate my own self. So mindfulness techniques of when I'm getting agitated, when I'm seeing things that are jarring, how can I bring myself back down instead of just ignoring it? And then in the evening, I'm often teaching. So I have to be in a good mental space to hold a class, to teach a class. So I've dealt with addiction my whole life. Part of the reason why I love being a yoga teacher is like, I can't get high and teach a yoga class. I can't get drunk and teach a yoga class. Like, there's so much more accountability. And what they don't tell you, why I advocate everybody to do a teacher training, is that there's so much creativity in being a yoga teacher. Like the way you sequence of class, the way you're going to introduce a pose, how you're going to prep the body, the playlist that you're going to come up with. I love to read poetry or inspirational quotes, and I theme that around my class. So coming up with that, it turns into an obsession, like this healthy obsession. Now, day in the life can also look like not doing any of that shit. Like I can wake up some days and be like, I don't have time to practice right now. I'm going to go do this instead. And when I don't do my routines and my rituals, like I can feel it. If I'm not journaling regularly, I'm not checking in with myself. So then shit will start to wind up in my head where I'm like, why am I feeling like that? Why am I like confused? Oh yeah, because I haven't journaled in like a week. Like it's not for everybody, but it is for me. And that's the other great part, is that like when you find those things that work to bring yourself back into balance or regulate yourself, it's so precious to have those, to the point where like if I have a partner, I will say like, no, you go do that, go watch TV, go do whatever you need to do at the end of the night, but I need to do these things for me. Point blank, like this is about me staying my best self so that I can keep giving from a place of love instead of a place of frustration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're big fans of journaling over here too, and among all those things.
Yeah. Like your
I
routine is just the way, I mean, like it sounds like we have this in common, like to stay grounded. If I'm out of routine, I'm like, and yes, there's days where like I'm like, I need to rest. I need to turn on Housewives and numb out. Some days that is needed, but most of my days are very like strict with journaling, meditating, moving my body. You have to have that you time and that time to release and to get into the parasympathetic system, rest, digest, like you just taught us. Like that is where we want to be, people. And with the
Yes.
schedule, at least for me, like just speaking for me, like it's my vibe.
Well, I agree,
Schedule me all
Kaylee.
day.
And something I struggled with was always this negative connotation with discipline. I have a lot of resentment that I'm trying to work out with my feelings around being disciplined. And until recently, I listened to someone speak on the fact, she was basically like, I'm only disciplined with the things that are good for me and I enjoy. So everything else can just throw it out the fucking window. But like you're, drinking a glass of warm lemon water in the morning and stretching, if doing a 15-minute practice, whatever, those things like I'm going to be hardcore about. And that's allowed me and my resistance to like slowly break, where it's like, okay, I'm only going to be strict with myself about things that actually, move the needle versus the things I think that are important, which is, getting an hour workout in. It's like, it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be whatever it needs to be. It needs to be
15 minutes of movement.
right.
That's what I always say.
Mhm.
Like, you're not going to do the workout if you hate the workout. So, like, if you don't like to lift weights, don't like that's not the workout for you. Pick up something else that sparks that joy in you.
Yeah. And for someone, perfect transition, Kaylee. Thank you for setting me up so beautifully. For someone who is interested in the benefits of yoga, but maybe hasn't been able to get into it or doesn't know where to start, would you have any kind of guiding reference for them, or what would you suggest?
Yes. And you're so right. I love what both of y'all are saying about you can't make these things that are valuable to you be a chore. You can't hate it. You can't drag your feet through it. You have to like find the time to know, like, if I do this, I'll just feel good. And that discipline, that like pressure that we put on ourselves, like we already hyper criticize ourselves. We're already so our biggest critic. Like to just away from you did it bad, you did it good today, you did this, you did that. Like quit grading ourselves for one, quit thinking that like achieving this certain goal or writing it down to like show somebody else is the goal here. No, like this is all about you. And if one day it works and the next day you're like, I don't need that for myself today, that's okay too. Like understanding that this doesn't have to be a competition with ourselves, like giving ourselves grace,
Mm-hmm.
giving ourselves patience, and to know we will fluctuate and will change, but we still get to come back to ourselves.
Yeah.
um with like a practice, especially you don't want to go to a public class. You don't want to have to find parking and worry about the stress of getting there and who's going to be there and what do you wear. I love YouTube with Yoga with Adrienne. Got to
Yeah.
drop the girl's name. Everybody loves her. She owns the studio that I do all my trainings out of. I truly believe in her message. Like, her classes are informative, they're easy to understand. She uses inclusive languaging, she uses trauma-informed techniques without having to call it that. Like, her approach and the way she teaches is what I've emulated myself off of. When I was doing my teacher training and we were required to practice 2 hours a week, a lot of the videos I'd be watching and practicing were hers. I write down phrases she says and I teach them in my public classes to this day. Like, Yoga with Adrienne is a great way to start a home practice, and it's like 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Like, you can pick a video that works with the amount of time that you have, and you're going to feel better after it. And yeah, that could feel like a chore some day too, but it's also a beautiful resource to just be like, hey, I have time to kill. Instead of scrolling on your phone, you can take a little bit of a break. There's also breathing videos on there. There's also, like you're saying, Kaylee, like sound healing stuff. Like, just pop them in the ears at the end of the day. It doesn't like you have to do all this movement stuff with it. And those are great tools and resources. I mean, one-on-one Zoom practices, absolutely. Like, yoga therapy over Zoom is a big thing that I love too. So like, I can meet with somebody that lives in Canada or that lives across the United States, and we can spend an hour and connect. A lot of this is about connection. It's about being with somebody and hearing them out. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to be heard, held, and seen. We all want to be nurtured. And when you have a team that surrounds you that is advocating for your best self, for your highest good, you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
100%.
You almost just made me like tear up. I literally, because I had a shrooms trip one time, and it's like total segue, but that was like the one thing that I took away from it was that I really do feel like people could feel healed, or be their healed version of themselves if they just felt like seen, heard, or loved. And that is just so beautiful and true to my heart. And I encourage people to continue to connect with themselves and connect with other people through yoga. I'm obviously major super fan over here for sure. I am curious, as you're someone that's an incredibly intentional person and kind of all things that you do you set a daily intention for yourself or like a weekly intention? Do you like affirmations? Are you into using that to meditate? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. I love affirmations. Intention, yes. Like, you got to know the why. What's my motivation here? Like, what am I doing this for? Even in my day job, I work in an animal hospital and I see a lot of suffering with animals. I see a lot of different things. But if I come back to, I'm here to help these animals that cannot advocate for themselves, I'm here to be their voice. It makes the sadness and the death that I watch feel a lot less heavy. So like, the intention behind everything is very important. Like, why am I showing up? Why am I doing this for somebody? Why am I offering this? Positive affirmations help me a lot during my healing journey, my own, and which is a constant journey. It doesn't end. There's no one day I'm going to wake up and everything's perfect. No, like, constantly knowing that there's work to be done is also very exciting because there's different ways to do the work. So one of the things that I was taught, I didn't get this on my own, we have to learn from others, we can't heal alone, was positive affirmations. So I wrote it on a card. It was when I was healing my sacral chakra, and it was, I am beautiful, I am worthy, I am confident in my abilities, I trust myself, I believe in myself, I am capable of greatness. And I've repeated those phrases to myself over and over again. I still have the paper hanging up in my mirror and I look at it every day. And that shit came true. 2 years later, it's been 2 years of these positive affirmations. Pardon. And you say it, you believe it. What you think, you believe. What you think is who you become. Like, we could all talk shit to ourselves all day long, and you know how miserable we'll become if
And a lot of
we
people do.
that's the hard part. And they think
Yeah.
it's normal. And they
And
think that, like, I deserve to talk to myself like this. I deserve to feel like I'm not enough. And whether that be something that happened in childhood, maybe it's a past life thing, like, there's so much you have to unwrite about internal narratives. I'm big
Mhm.
on discovering internal narratives and the stories we tell ourselves that sometimes aren't even true, that
Mhm.
never really actually happen. So taking this power, awareness is half of the battle. Notice what you're thinking. Notice when these shitty thoughts come up. Notice when you look at yourself in the mirror, what are you thinking? What are you saying to yourself about yourself? And can you turn it back into something of a place of love and care? Like, I love you. I care about you. And you got this shit. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, you
100%.
fucking that is actually speaks to me too, because we actually did a podcast episode just on my like transformation, and one of the things, I think it was called Rewrite Your Story,
It
because
was.
whenever I decided to change, there was a quote that I heard, and it was like, your life doesn't have to be this. You can change it into whatever you want. And it seems so simple, but to hear it and to be like, oh shit, like I don't have to be this person. I can be the person that I look up to. I'm going to fucking be that person. And it was such just a freaking switch. And I have never looked back since. It's been like what, 3 years almost, and I
Mhm.
completely changed my life and I haven't looked back. So like that so speaks to me. And I was wondering, and you don't have to go into details, but was working, with the trauma yoga and how you are taking to get your qualifications or certifications, did that bring up your personal trauma? Well, I'm sure it did. Was it how, like, was it super intense? Was it something, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. Even like, so we've done a lot on studies on mental health and different aspects of it and all of that that goes into it. And it's impossible to learn about these things without feeling like, oh shit, that's me. Oh crap, I do that. Oh no, like I'm broken. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And again, it's about awareness being part of it. And like, yes, I might have this condition or I might have experienced this shitty ass thing, but what am I doing now with that? Like, how am I not letting this pull me down into the darkness again? And how am I letting it bring me back to the light and using it for my own healing journey, using it to help other people who are just discovering their healing journey? And it's it's constant work. Like I said, like it's not at the end of the day, like I could go on a retreat tomorrow for 2 weeks because there's like I have 2 more weeks worth of shit I need to go through and I'll still not feel like it was enough. We
Yeah.
can also get like addicted to trying to fix ourselves when there's nothing wrong with who we are. We are perfect and whole just as we are. Finding things that you can switch, work on will only make you a happier person. Because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's about happiness and self content. And if you're okay with yourself, you're okay with everybody else too. So it comes
Yeah.
from within.
You hit on this earlier too, talking about the importance of community. And I think that it obviously is very important, but to have people, doesn't have to be in your direct ether, but just in your environment in some place that has this language and these tools and this practice and are somewhat on their journey to like help call it out. I mean, I know if I'm talking to Kaylee and I'm saying really negative things about myself, she's going to be like, stop fucking talking to yourself like that. Like, that's ugly. And I notice that through work calls when I listen to someone using like self-deprecating humor, which like I get and like can do at times, but it's like, hey, like you don't actually think that, right? Because you're actually X, Y, and Z. You're amazing. It's just being able to have people to kind of, yeah, call you out and hold you
Check
accountable and not,
you.
yeah, and really be a resource for you so that we all can like heal together. So I think that just totally speaks to the why and the intention behind being very selective on your community and who you allow in your safe space. I mean, I don't want to like no new friends it, but like, just be careful.
Yeah.
Well,
Connect on like a spiritual.
and there's a concept of like attracts like, right? You have those that you resonate with are people that are similar to you, right? And if you feel like somebody, maybe like it's a family member or it's a close friend or even a partner sometimes that feels a little negative or toxic at times, but you're like, I don't want to just abandon this person. I love them. Finding ways to bring in things that build you both up. Like that's what I love about a yoga class is oftentimes people are showing up there because they're starting their healing journey, whether they know it or not. They might not go there being conscious like, I'm ready to heal. They're going to be like, I need to be here. And they're drawn to it for some reason. And over time, they get that healing and they get that community. So, like, sometimes it's so subconscious that we don't even realize that's what we're seeking out. Same thing with like a positive tribe, like a good group of people. Like, you will attract what you put out. When you're a nice, wholesome person, maybe a nice, wholesome person comes to you. If you're a gossiping shitbag all the time, you might hang out with other gossiping shitbags.
Yep.
If you're going to go to the bar and meet somebody, yeah, they might be cool, but you'll also meet really cool people in other locations that aren't evolved around drinking. Like, so there's just like this, how do you find these people? How do you still appreciate those that are in your life that may be struggling too? And just like inviting them to do more positive things together, inviting them, like you said, to like call me on it. Like, let me know when you think that there's something going on with me. Other people recognize shit in you that you don't even recognize in yourself. Like, I would have never ended up here if Jeanette was like, girl, you need to go. I'm not going to hang out with you anymore if you continue to do this shit. That was like, okay, I know you love me.
Yeah, it's the blunt, pure honesty of people that know you and see you and don't want to watch you, struggle. And I love that. And I'm glad that you had that in your life to be able to bring you here today to really just educate the shit out of me and Kaylee on some
I know.
beautiful, beautiful topics. I mean, it's definitely, I'm gonna be Googling like I want to be in yoga therapy. Like give it to me. We'll talk.
Dude,
We'll talk.
you should.
Oh, I want to be a guinea pig. But
No.
I really want to know, Alexis, for people that are interested in learning more about the things you're talking about, maybe just even taking a class with you if they're in
Yeah.
Arizona, how can people find you and use you as a resource?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to just connect with anybody that wants more information about this. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Alexis Solar Plexus _ in between. I have a website, joinalchemy.com, where you can set up private sessions, even on Zoom. I think Zoom is a very powerful tool to connect people. And it's also just fun to go face to face like this. If you're traveling in Arizona, Yuma, Arizona is where I'm located. I work at Studio Y Yoga, which is in this beautiful historic building downtown. We have the most cute, cozy, good energy atmosphere, beautiful instructors, a full schedule from 5:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, all different modalities. We do sound healing, we do yoga, we do Reiki, we do all the great stuff for everybody. And then, yeah, take the show on the road. I work with a sound healing group that's going to be traveling to do corporate events and stuff like that. So hopefully it will bring us to Texas, California, all of these networking healing centers. So yeah, hit me up. Even if there's just questions, curiosities, I could like talk about this all day. I've been scaling back my day job to do more yoga stuff. So definitely creating space for anybody that wants more information.
Yeah,
You
we're going to list all of that in the notes so they can definitely contact. Sorry, Grace, I cut you off.
No, you're reading my mind. We are going to say show notes, but also you're one of my favorite follows, Alexis. Your content is always incredibly inspiring and
Oh,
beautiful and light, and it just, brings smiles to my days. And girl, you're busy. I know you're putting in the work on the things that you love, and it's so, so good to see you, just glowing inside and out. I love being around happy people.
I
Thank you
know.
so much for coming today and for educating our audience on all things yoga and yoga as
Wait,
therapy.
I have one more
Of
question.
course. Don't let me cut you
Do
off.
you have an intention for
Ooh,
us?
I love it.
Johnny on the spot.
Sorry.
Okay. The intention is to recognize and find gratitude for the things that make you happy.
You heard it here first,
Killed
guys.
it, man.
Thank
I
you.
am like, can we Zoom date? I'm sad you're in Arizona because you're just our type of girl. Like the energy I feel through this Zoom, I'm like, yeah, like I feel you. So thank you for being here because you're good people. And I'm so fucking happy that you're building this beautiful community. And
Mhm.
I could talk to you for forever. So once you get your practice yoga, graduate vibe over here, we're going to have you back on and be like, all right, give us more deep.
Nice. Yes. Respect to the process. I'll be in Austin
Yeah.
at the end of the month. So if you want to go
Oh,
swimming.
good. Okay, good.
Thanks so much, Alexis. We appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for listening and joining us today. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.